Okay, I'm back for breakfast. Let's see if that thing will record properly. No, I just went ahead and did that lower bar tack because I didn't think you really needed to see it. So now I've unrolled the top piece of cloth and I'm ready to sew on the top band. I'm going to do buckles and straps first anyway because I'm not sure when this fellow's showing up. My email's misbehaving, so all I know there's an unread message there. Do you remember I marked the center of the apron after chalking everything? I marked the cloth where the center of apron would be because I want to line up, I want to match these because you see right here, the cloth can stretch and there's minute variations in scale along the length of the cloth. So there we are centered, but possibly because when I ripped it, this is a tiny bit stretched. That's a tiny bit outside the line, but it's infinitesimal. It's only a couple of yarns width. But if I go one repeat over, you see it's offset fully by the width of the line. I go another repeat over, it's even a little bit more, right? So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully this will be visible. So I'm just going to hold that there. I'm not going to bother pinning it. I'm just going to roll the cloth out the same way that I roll the measuring tape, following the radius of the kilt off the end. Now, I'm not going to, it's important not to stint. I mean, I've cut it to length and left what I thought was a good amount over, 2 or 3 inches, and then found that during the sewing process the cloth was bunching up and then it was ever so slightly too short, which is super aggravating. So I measured it once, so I'm going to measure it a second time. Okay, centered. Lots of overlap on the end, looks like 8 to 10 inches overlap on the end. Radius. Right? So if I cut, let's be really generous, I'm going to cut there. Because there's no way, in fact I'm going to cut a little bit beyond that. Okay, there's the cloth for a top band. Put it aside, don't really need it now. Let's get this extra yarn out the way. Come on. There we go. So, just for attention to detail, make sure the cloth is lined up the right way. The twill is going high left, low right, matching the kilt. Good. I'm going to pass my strap through the buttonhole. So it seems that if I see there's that wiggle room, my strap is lined up on the edge between black and gray. Some days I will bring the cloth in like that. You see, but what I'm going to do is cut my 2 tabs. So using my leather strap as a gauge. Okay, there's the width of the tab. Let's cut it here and 4 inches. Yeah. So that's the length of the cloth tab. 1.5 inches. That's where it'll fold over. I might as well just do the other one at the same time, right? Normally I only do 2 straps and buckles, because the third strap and buckle on the lower right hip doesn't really accomplish anything. Okay, I can eyeball that again. And 4 inches, and measure 1.5 inches, like so. Good. Down come the shears. Being super careful to keep this away from the kilt, because these things will go right through multiple layers of cloth without even slowing down. They're that sharp. Pardon me. Okay. 1 buckle, 2 buckle straps. Now, I'm going to cut. You see, I just folded it over and found the center line, or a little past the center line. In fact, I'm going to take it a little further still. Let's cut it. Good. And then this, generally I just eyeball this, but I'm sort of, see, there's my fold. I don't want it up against the fold, so let's go back to there. Things go better if I do it in pairs, right? So good. Knock the corners off. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my right hip buckle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Left hip buckle. I can put my chalk away now. I can put my shears away. Where's my black thread? There you are. And one thing I do is I spend a little bit of thought thinking about matching the thread, because ideally, after I've sewn this together, the stitches that I've sewn it with won't be visible on the outside, or at least they'll be minimally visible. Now, some people, and again, I've presented videos about this elsewhere, and I'm probably almost certainly repeating myself, but some kilt makers will make, okay, looking for the right needle. Are you it? You're it. Some kilt makers will, they won't sew these, they won't sew the tab. This is the tab. They won't sew them together. They'll do this really clever sort of origami maneuver, like rolling a cigarette with one hand kind of thing. So they'll fold it all together and then sew it in place, which is all very nice, and you got superior skills. But the moment you take this thing off to alter it, it just sort of comes apart. Other people will put a piece of canvas inside, and I get that, but if you sew it this way, you don't have to insert a piece of canvas, because this is going to be plenty strong. So there's a tab in the right place for the left hand hip, so I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to fold it. There's the chalk mark. I'm going to give it a little extra so that I can't see the chalk mark. And I haven't knotted this. I've waxed it, but I haven't knotted it because it's not necessary. A back stitch, and a back stitch at the corner. And then, now fortuitously, as you can see here, my stitches, which are going to be visible on the outside, or at least they're penetrating cloth on the outside, my stitches are aligned so that they're parallel with the twill again. Now when I get to the end, I did the same thing on this end. I kind of roll it down a little bit so that the cloth narrows just at the end, and that makes it a little less likely that a ragged end is going to poke out when I've finished. Do a back stitch. I'm going to pause, grab my shears. Now there's the line where the center bar of the buckle will be located. So because this is a double tongue buckle, I cut a section out like so. If it was a single tongue buckle, I would just cut a little V. But there we go. Now this is poking out a bit, so I'm going to trim that back right away. There we go. Get rid of the yarns. I'm going to fold this down, and the same thing, bring it to the line. Where'd my needle go? There you are. One back stitch in the middle to help prevent the ends poking out after I've finished sewing these, and a back stitch. And 1, 2, come on. I seem to be a bit handless this morning. Okay, that's it. Perhaps I didn't have enough coffee. Where's that chalk line? There you are. And a back stitch. And that's a bit proud, so I'm going to relieve that. Not so far as to interfere with my stitching. And there's my chalk line for the center bar of the buckle. 1, 2, 3, and it looks like I've managed to avoid cutting the thread. Hooray. Okay, good. Now, these buckles have a front and back. The wide flat part is in the direction towards in which the strap will be coming. We don't want to do it that way. Okay. Put her through. Bring up. Now sometimes, frequently, it's hard to get the cloth exactly straight. Now what I've done is I've pushed the tongues, they're quite sharp, I've pushed them through the cloth, and I've done a bit of care because I don't want them to push a yarn out of the cloth, and I don't want them to cut a yarn. So I've pushed them through with a bit of care. I feed the top through. I take a look at it. Is it square? Okay, it's good, it's square. It's not, I don't always get that right the first time. No. There we are. I'm going to relieve these two corners so that they won't be visible. Hot diggity, these shears are sharp. Okay. Fold. Oh, I don't like that being visible either. There we go. Fold the top down, or fold the end down, I should say. Hold it with my pinched in my right hand. A couple of overcast stitches to secure that end, and now I'm sewing up towards the buckle. I realize black thread on black cloth, you can't see anything. Frankly, I can't see anything either. I'm relying on the contrast of the thread against the green background so I can see where I've actually sewn. So I bring it up within maybe a little over a 1/4 inch to the buckle, and now I stitch across. Being careful that I don't snag my thread either on the buckle itself or on the tongues, because there's a very good chance that I wouldn't notice it until I was done. And I would gnash my teeth in frustration and pull the whole thing apart and start over again. Okay, pinch the other side again. Several overcasts. Put it through. And now I'm tacking this back and forth. I'm sewing this open bit shut. It's just a fairly large stitch passing through the cloth, making sure that it's well back from the ragged edge. And through, and through. Okay, I'm done. Okay, my eyes seem to be sharper today because I'm not struggling to get the thread through the eye of the needle. Right, okay. Thread's about to, it did again, okay. Watch this, this will be the exception that proves. There we go. There we go. Where was I? Here and there. And then I just finished with a couple of overcasts in the middle. I didn't, as you saw, I didn't knot either end. It's not necessary. And there we have a buckle tab which has mechanical integrity. You can, if you ever have to adjust this thing, you can pop the thing off and move it and then sew it down again without worrying about it flying apart on you. Let's get my shears out the way. I think rather than do that immediately, I'm going to sew this one in place. This needle laying loose here is concerning me, so I'm just going to poke it through my shirt so I can find it in a second. Now there's some of my white cotton stitches from when I temporarily fastened that buckle. I'm going to pick those out because I don't want them visible from the outside. I don't care about the inside, but now remember what I'd said about straps, buckles mounted too far forward so that the strap had to sort of push back to get through. That's a bad idea. So I'm putting this back about so that the strap will be able to come out on a clean line, and the end of the tab coincides with the end of that seam, with that particular seam, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th seam. And you know, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the length of the cloth. I'm going to cut a new piece. I'm going to redo both of these because I should be able to do this so that that detail isn't visible. I mean, that's good enough, I suppose, in that, as you can see, we've lined up these two stripes, but this is visible. Right, so I've got the time to do it, and I'm also particular enough. I'm going to cut that apart and do it again. So, yeah, how did I do that? It was like that. It was like that. 1, 2. 1. And how long is that? That is 2 inches. So let's measure forward from this detail. 2 inches. There's my fold, plus 1.5 inches. That's where I'm going to cut. Back 4 inches from that. There's my second cut. And do the same thing on this side. I'm going to measure 2 inches from the back fold. There's where the buckle will be, 1.5 inches. That's my leading edge. 4 inches back. Let's give it a bit extra right there. Okay. Let's undo that hard work, shall we? And frankly, I urge you to be merciless. You know, if you can do it better, stop and do it better. Okay. Right hip. Left hip. And where's that piece that I threw away? I can at least use it as a template to see how wide to cut. So I'm going to cut there, there, and there, and there. Relieve the corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. You go on the floor because I don't want to mix up and sew the rejected piece of cloth. I mean, sure, it'd be good practice, but after 50 years in the trade, well, yeah, sure. Even after 50 years in the trade, I benefit by practice, but still. Okay, you are left. You are, no, yeah, left and right. Okay. Chalk goes away. Cloth goes away. Extra bit of thread so I don't run short this time. Pulled it too quickly, broke the thread. Okay, bye-bye thread. Fresh piece of thread. Talk about more haste, the less speed, eh? Oh, no. Gathered up again there. Okay, I'm gonna have to, nope, you're not it. All right, put my needle through my shirt. Okay, can I, again, it's twisted into sort of a half knot, so I'm just going to put my needle through the bite. If I can get it in between the two. Oh, come on, you little so-and-so. Now, this is definitely a false economy, but I'm kind of superstitious about wasting materials, even thread. Come on. There you go, and I pull that way, nothing, and I pull that way. Okay, well, a second piece of wasted thread. Third time lucky. And pull it a little more slowly. There, success. Pinch and pull. Now, I've already explained all of this, so this time I think I'm just going to do the work without talking, and it'll be literally in real time, although I don't rush. I don't like rushing. Okay, there's my fold. Oh, I'm going to talk anyway, whatever. Back stitch. Pretty much locks it in place. Back stitch at the corner. Oh, let's get that wax out of there. Put you away. Back stitch. Come on. There. Back stitch to that corner. Pull down the shears, make sure my thread's out of the way because I've made that mistake many times. Cut and cut. You know, I could send the tongues through all 4 layers or 3 layers of cloth, but that's not the point. By reducing it there means that'll fold a little more nicely. It reduces bulk at the point where it's going to fold. It's like kerf cutting a piece of wood to bend at that spot. Okay. And one. And we stitch along. Okay, let's reduce that a little bit. Reduce this, make sure my thread is safe. A little bit. Cut for the tongues. Okay, put buckle through, making sure it's oriented the right way, oriented, aligned, you know what I mean. No, that's not even near square. Okay, come on. Still not square. Nope. Okay, there we are. Bang on the mark, finally. Push the end through. Okay. Good. See, when that's done, those 2 lines won't be visible. So I don't begrudge that extra time I took at all because it's producing a better effect. And again, yeah, I really urge that if you ever find a position where you're tempted to just let something go, you know, it's good enough. It's gonna haunt you. If you got any sort of conscience, it's gonna haunt you because eventually somebody is gonna compliment you on the work. And if the work is in front of you, your eye is going to immediately go to the spot where you made that shortcut, even if you can't see it. And if the work isn't in front of you, you're immediately going to remember that shortcut. So it's going to diminish your enjoyment, as it were, of your appreciation of the compliment. So do it right. Okay. Yep, there it is. It caught on the tongues. Ouch. Ram the needle into my finger again. First one of the day. More. Shears should be there. There we go. Where was I? Right here. Here and here. Nice, if I say so myself. Okay, let's sew up this inner seam. Okay, a couple of back stitches on the inside. Now there's enough thread left over that I'm tempted to go directly to sewing the thing on, but I also know from experience that it's going to wind up being just that little bit too short. So I'm just going to put my needle there. There's a bit of tuft hanging out there, so let's trim that off. Good. Well, let's see what we got. That, look at that. I really, really like that look. I'm going to do the same thing with that one, but what I'm going to do now, I think without any delay, I'm going to sew this one in place, and then I'm going to, oh hell, maybe I'll just let the camera keep going, because once these buckles are in place, the rest is gravy. If I can manage to get the top band on before the customer arrives, all well and good. Again, my emails, I don't know what it's doing. It shows that I have 5 unread messages, but try as I might, I can't find those unread messages. Thanks, Windows 11. I tell you, I'm going to go back to writing letters if it keeps up. But fortunately, I have the client's phone number, because it's all about redundancy. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'll get, communication almost invariably starts with an email, but I'll also ask them for their street address and their phone, or their cell that I can text them at, or their landline, as much redundancy as possible. And the reason for that is I had a client one day, he had an extremely urgent alteration, and he flew over from Victoria, handed me the kilt. We saw what had to be done. I'd already had his email, and for whatever reason, I just, on a whim, I asked him for his street address as well, to include that on his invoice, on his account statement. And he flew back home. I probably had the alteration done by the time he was home, but his email kept bouncing back, and I'm like, this is odd, because I've already had an email exchange. Why is it hiccuping? So I took an address, like a recipe card, used it as a postcard, name and address, stamp on one side, message on the back. Your kilt is done, your email is failing me, can you give me a call? He actually got it the next business day, thank you Canada Post. So the day was saved. So yeah, I'm all about redundancy. Okay, so I'm about to sight the strap, and as I already said, and shall continue to say, it's important that it's far enough back that the strap, when it comes through, it goes on a fair line, as it were, a fair lead through the buckle. If the buckle's forward, the strap's got to do that, and that's going to contribute to the wear of the kilt, right? So I've set it's just, in this case, it's just convenient that the back edge of the tab coincides with this pleat. But I've also learned that my first important seam, I usually sew clockwise, but I'm going to sew counterclockwise this time, because I have one, if I start in the middle and sew down the pleat and then sew forward, I'm lining up the edge of the tab on that element of the tartan. If I did it this way and I'm sewing black against black without a reference line, there's a pretty good chance it would be a bit crooked. So let me get the strap out the way. Okay, so it's lined up and we sew through and through. This is the only way to do it. Far too many people just prick the top cloth. It's a bad idea. You want the tab to be sewn on as strongly as possible, particularly here, because this is the buckle that secures the inner apron. And remember, we put the vast majority of the tension as we tighten the kilt is borne by this strap and buckle, so it has to be sewn entirely through. It's gone through the tartan, the umpteen layers of tartan, 6 or 7 layers of tartan, and the canvas. Okay, extra stitch in the corner just to capture the corner so you don't feel the nub. I still feel it, so I'm going to do it one more time. That's better. Okay. So I'm going to sew this all the way around the edge. And then I'm going to sew up into the middle, which you'll see in a second, or in a few minutes. Checking to make sure. Yeah, it's still online. There we go. What's my length of thread? I'm doing all right. Okay, a couple of overcasts at the corner here. Lost my thread. Come on, get in there. Okay, just about done. Okay, so I've sewed all the way around the edge. Now I'm going to sew up the middle, just for that extra amount of anchoring, that extra amount of strength. Because again, this is the one that bears the load. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and a knot, back stitch, 1, 2, 3, and a knot, and back stitch, and there we are. Okay, there's one in place. There's a tiny bit of a whisker of the gray that folded under, but let's see if I can just nip that off. There we go. Nicely done, if I say so myself. Good. Now I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm not going to run the camera during the whole process because, again, we're doing exactly the same thing, but on this side. And the question often, or well, at least the question, the concern that I've had in the past is where to correctly set this buckle. I mean, it'd be easy if the customer could come for a fitting. I had the buckle attached to the strap, we put it on, and then I could chalk it. But, and the second way is to take, this waist is 37, is to measure from the button for the hole in the strap, and then radius around, which is about bang on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this buckle, this tab, it's going to be essentially identical to this, but with the twill corresponding to the lay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this buckle by counting I'm going to set it the same number of seams back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is where the butt end of the tab will go. So I'll sew it in place like that, because sometimes it's too easy to set the thing too far back because you relied on the measuring tape, and in this case, for whatever reason, reality doesn't conform with the numbers. So yeah, by sewing the tab and then insetting it the same number of seams, we will meet with success. Okay, I'm going to shut the camera off at this point because I'm going to have another cup of coffee, send a text to the client, and then get back to work. Cheers.